Let's move on to topic number 2 because I think it's important to bring this up as well. We got to get into politics for a second, where there's been a shocking turnaround, in some people's eyes anyway, from a high-profile Donald Trump supporter who would happen to be named Dana White. The UFC president now says he wants absolutely positively nothing to do with politics after being one of the biggest and loudest supporters of the president-elect. White was asked by The New Yorker about politics Saturday night at UFC 309 at Madison Square Garden, where Trump and some of his cabinet picks attended as well. By the way, I was there too. Not with them, but I was in the building. Look at this quote from White right here, where he said this about being a political pundit. Quote, "I'm never fucking doing this again. I want nothing to do with this shit. It's gross. It's disgusting. I want nothing to do with politics." End quote. Ladies and gentlemen, you might think this is far-fetched, it's far-reaching, it's something that you make front page news and all of this other stuff. All Dana White expressed is how most of us feel about Capitol Hill and the politicians that reside there. We can't stand them. I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about the apparatus. I'm talking about the structure. I'm talking about our government and how corrupt it has become because of their behavior, salacious and otherwise, against one another, and how unproductive they've been to the betterment of American society as a whole because of it. Dana White wasn't getting political. Dana White was supporting his friend. Donald Trump has been a friend of Dana White spanning nearly 40 years. Donald Trump was one of the original supporters of the UFC. That's how far back he and Dana White go. Dana White has said on numerous occasions that Donald Trump assisted in helping the UFC become what it ultimately became, which was a multi-billion-dollar establishment. You damn right he was going to stick out his chest and help Donald Trump, because Donald Trump helped him before he became who he is now. Fair enough. We all do that. All of us. At least we should. But I'm going to tell you this. When you go a step further and you dig deeper into what Dana White had to say about politicians and politics, and when he says the world is dirty, think about this. This man is associated with a pugilistic sport. This man has to sit across from promoters. He has to sit across from fighters. He has to lawyers, and he has to negotiate deals. Things like that get ugly. His sport has been compared to a sport of boxing, where you got promoters ruining the sport because they refuse to give us the fights that we want to see when we want to see it. And still, in the face of all of that, and all the unsavory behavior he's been associated with throughout the years, this brother said, politics is disgusting, it's disgraceful, it's this, it's that. You know how bad you got to be to hear that from Dana White? That's what we're dealing with America. And this is what I'm talking about. When I brought up Morning Joe the other day, I don't have any axe to grind with Morning Joe. Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski have always been cool with me. I'm simply saying, in the interest of fairness, when you call somebody a racist and you have no problem with their name being associated with Hitler or with Nazis, as they did not have a problem with Donald Trump, associating Donald Trump with such a thing, how do you then go to Mar-a-Lago to speak with him and then come back over the airwaves and don't tell us what the hell you said? What you say? I got one of my producers here, my man Galen, been a producer for years. Yo, Galen, what's up? What up? If the man or his wife called Donald Trump such a thing, should they not have said, hey, we're sorry? Or we meant every word we said? Shouldn't their audience have had the right to know that? That's what I'm talking about. That's why I mentioned them. Because you got to be consistent. You got the same politicians. We're listening to Representative Clyburn when Neil Cavuto on Fox brought up Nazis having Donald Trump's name associated with Nazis and asking, was that not out of line? And Clyburn had no problem with it. Well, here's the problem. Now that he's the president-elect, and the Republicans have the Senate, and the Republicans have the House, and the Republicans have the Supreme Court, how are you going to do business? How are you going to get anything passed? How are you going to serve your constituency and make their lives better if your incendiary rhetoric made it worse to do business with the other side? Are we not going to be grown-ups? That's what I'm talking about. You've heard me say a lot of things. I didn't vote for him. You heard me say that. You heard me talk about childishness. You heard me talk about his unwillingness to galvanize and bring people together. You heard me talk about those things. You didn't hear me bring up racist. You didn't hear me bring up Hitler or Nazis. You didn't hear me bring up stuff like that. It's counterproductive. It's unfair. It's irresponsible. When you know that if he wins, you're going to have to do business with him. That's the problem with this binary system we're living in. People get ugly and ugly and uglier because they want their way devoid of compromise. And then when you lose and find out you have to compromise, you don't know what to do. But isn't it time to ask if at least half this country was wrong on how it conducted themselves? You can feel differently all you want to and vote in a different direction. That's your right as an American citizen. But when you engage in vitriol, particularly of the irresponsible kind, you cut yourself off from the ability to do business on behalf of the people you purport to represent. And where does that leave you? With a president you don't want, but at least half the country said it wants, which means most of the country told you to go kick rocks. Facts are facts.